Running a little late today. I'm going to include my walk in, and that way I can also show you what I mean by some of the trail markers and sit spots and crossover that I talk about. So let me start by flipping this the other direction. Well, that's the first time I've heard him knocking from over there. Anyhow, uh, stones are sometimes used as a marker, usually where there is a sit spot or an old blind, which is in the case of this particular area. There's an obvious little sit spot. It's been crossed into a couple of times. Some woven branches there. So we're just going to walk in, and I'll go back to the area I want to sit in. Hopefully this will give you guys an idea of the types of locations you can... Oh, there's some cross down trailing. So normally I kind of go in quiet when I'm first tracking an area. The reason is I want them not to notice me. So that's where the kana for the A-frame was. Or the, excuse me, A-frame, the marker for a home. And the trail, old trail that links up with my dad's path, and I found a couple of sit spots down there by the river, because the river is just beyond that area. And then back around where these two trees are, there, around that area was where the kana was in the pathway for a tree. And I believe there was maybe a sitter there at one point coming in. So I figured I'd walk you in. This is the kicked rock. Yeah, we got disturbed, so let's boot scoot. And that's the cross trail down into that area. So let me get on to where I'm going to sit for my show. So yeah, cross trailing, a lot of downward. Oh, there's some newly crossed sticks. A lot of downward movement here off the main trail. And a ton of kana. All kinds of stuff laid out today. And that's been here, I think, forever. It's an old chassis or something. I think it was a truck. This property at one point in time, now there's more cross through, and that's what I mean by cross through. So something steps off the path, walks over the hillside. So their behavior. A lot of people go out and look for Bigfoot and the like at night. And I've done that. But I'm not looking for a hunting party. The males go out and hunt at night. I'm more interested in getting to know the family group and trying to interact with the kiddos. They're young. Oh, and there's the old play blind. Now, found the mushrooms back behind there, and then the bed system's also back in that area. And nope, cobweb's still in it, so nothing's sat in that in the last 24 hours. So I always try to go for, finding them where they're at in the daylight, because that gives me a better idea of where their young are and where their bed system is. where they're foraging at night. Oh, wow. At night, all you get is, the males hunting. Occasionally, there'll be a female that will try to chase down a fawn, but nice new cross up trail there. It's going off in the fennel. My dad used to collect fennel from this area. Another knock behind me. Quite a ways away though. Something like the other end of the pond. And down that trail is where I found the banana originally. So, sorry for the walk. I'm almost there. It's where the log is. It's across the trail. Oh, way more cross through in here now. So, yeah, I look for them as to where they get together in groups. It's far easier to kind of interact with them. And children, if they don't find you to be a threat around them, they'll let you interact with their children a lot. Jill's still here, but it's definitely been kind of just left behind. So I'm going to flip this around now that I'm here. Sorry for the walk in. Let me throw some glasses on. And our weather's been not too bad, a little stormy recently. Sorry for all the shake, guys. And this weekend it's supposed to be getting really hot again. So, my goodness, I'm just dropping stuff everywhere. Let me try to get this together. Alright, so let me read some of these. Hey Mary, how you doing? Yeah, well, us natives, we're never exactly on time. Oh, fennel's a food. You roast it, eat it. It's really good with duck, actually. It takes the gamey taste out of some meat. Hey, Jason. Yes, X structures mark like their hunting trails typically. So that's a pretty common thing to find. You'll have the blinds, and the reason why they teach their young to hunt in groups is because when you're surviving in the wilds, you don't have a second chance. If you get injured, if you get an infection from an injury, you can pretty well kiss yourself goodbye. So I think the reason why they teach their young to cooperatively hunt and then carry that on into adulthood is because more of you working together, less chance of an injury. And I think that's kind of exemplified, if any of you have noticed the, Thinker Thunker, he's a good page to look into. He's got some good stuff going on. He did a piece on Yellowstone, the 5 cryptid males that were hunting down a buffalo. Well, it's so that they could hold the animal down to kill it, break its neck so it wouldn't hurt them. So when we think about them going in and tearing apart animals, that's not really realistic. That's, like a bear. That's what cougars do. That's not what people do. Thank you. Yes, it is really beautiful here in Oregon. And we've got so many different kinds of terrain here. It's just a little crazy because, out on the coast we have rainforests and we have ferns that grow like 5 feet tall. And then you go inland and we got high desert and nothing but sagebrush and scrub plants. And waterways are the only thing that have any kind of life near them. You go south, it gets more high desert, but mountainy, and then you're getting into the redwoods, in southern Oregon. So it gives plenty of terrain to survive in for dang sure. Now, that little trail there behind me is more of the fennel patch, but that's where I found the banana after it'd been eaten. So, why would you drag a banana around and store it for a day or two and then drag it somewhere else to eat it? It's not normal for a raccoon to do that, and we aren't going to do that, but maybe a more primordial human would. Hey, Lala. Yeah, I'm sorry. I won't be able to get the other lives up and out to the public until I have 1,000 subscribers. So it's going to be another month or two probably before I can get them up from. Well, they're up. I can't take them off private setting. Stevens Pass, Washington. I have been up there a little bit. I did some driving around up in the mountains up there with a friend of mine, and there's a lot of evidence up there. Oh my gosh, there's lots of structures up there. There's a lot of crossed trees. I heard some stuff up there too when we were up there, and then a lot of locals see cryptids in that area. And then the interesting thing is the further north you get, the more dense the population of them seems to be, believe it or not. Here they're a little more spread out, and I think it's because they have more terrain to still stay spread out in. So I think you see more of them up there simply because they have more high ground terrain, and then what is occupiable is pretty well already occupied by us. So let's see. The cooperative behavior. They daily forage in small groups. The females with the young will typically go into a marshy area or a watery area to do their food gathering. That will usually consist of like finding roots, sometimes berries, flowers, depending on the season, or nuts. They also take small game, little birds, frogs, um, little things. I've also seen a lot of medicinal gathering by the females in sweet camps, marshes. In the day, though, the males, they'll still forage, but they do more looking for voles or grabbing ducks. They don't go for a lot of large game ever. They do a lot of small game. And they do make like a food roll, which is kind of like a suitcase the way they lay it out. So they'll lay out like plats of bark, and then they put the dead creature on the little stand, and then they kind of roll those pieces together, and they tie them with like, well, they'll use honeysuckle vine, or they'll use raspberry vine, or ivy, anything that's handy, and they'll tie those little animals into a bundle, all protected with the bark, and they'll put a handle on it, and that's how the males will carry their food to wherever they're going to wash their food before they share it together, because they wash their food like other primates like us before they eat it, and they also share their food with the group. They're not just out there grabbing and going for themselves. They have family cooperation for food gathering and doling out. So the females, sometimes will use a little basket, and there are a couple of different varieties of baskets that they use, but they're very rudimentary. One type is a roll of like vines, and it's just like rolling up like you would a hose with a hole in the middle, and then they'll put little cross sticks on the bottom, and they'll tie a little bit of stuff around the top to make a handle so it doesn't fall apart. And then they'll lay a piece of bark in the bottom of that basket to give it a real bottom, supported by the little cross pieces. And those cross pieces will have a U-shaped cut in either end, so they can be kind of, placed in the vines to hold them open, spread them out. And they'll put their little frogs or flowers or whatever the things that they've gathered in those baskets. The other thing I've noticed is that especially where there's running water, where you got little springs, or you got trickle streams off of hillsides, or a cool little drip sump area under a tree, they'll use those as kind of a basic refrigeration. So you'll sometimes find like birds or frogs wrapped up in a fern leaf and just stuck sitting in the shallow water of the drip or underneath the drip to keep it cool, especially on hot days. So when I go up and down creek beds, because I follow creek beds to find track and hand evidence, because following their trails, you're not going to find it. Most trails are hard packed from where, or they just they get disturbed because everything's walking over them. So following a creek bed, especially one that's shallow, sometimes will give you, edge evidence. You'll be able to find handprints, footprints, or, food, or places where they've washed food, pulled apart a food ball, or pulled apart a basket. So the things to watch for, if you by chance find an area where they have been washing the animals and preparing them for meal, you'll find the remnants of the vines that held the roll together. You'll find the pieces of bark, and you might find like some of the feathers from the birds. You'll find parts of the plants that they don't want to eat. Sometimes it's just a root that's left behind, so it's sometimes very difficult to identify what the plant was unless you go around pulling up plants and looking at the root systems and going, or you go have it tested. So there's that. But yes, they cooperatively feed each other. So they've got a very community-oriented behavior that way. Additionally, the ones like the Oma, Guanch, the Oma look like chimpanzees. My adopted mother's Oma, and she stands about 9.5 feet these days. And she has modeling across her face. She has a birthmark. She's got clear skin. And so those people, the Oma, they clean their food and prepare it right there, typically on the spot. They don't do a lot of dragging stuff around. Although she did utilize stuff that I gave her. Like I gave her a metal toolbox once to put all of her things in, her tools and whatnot. Excuse me. And she did that. And she used a lot of traps for her foraging. She used grass traps a lot, and she used little snare traps, and she'd use kind of coaxing traps. So in the afternoon sun, she had a spot she liked to sit at the end of one of our mink buildings that was hidden away, and she'd sprinkle seed where the blackberries came down, and she let the birds fly in, and she'd hit them with the ultrasound. And I didn't know exactly what she was doing because I'd see her turn her head and then I wouldn't hear anything and the bird would flop around and act weird. So finally one day, about the second or third time I saw the behavior, I asked her, "What is this?" And by then, though, we were already learning to talk to each other. That was like 1.5 years into me knowing her before I saw stuff like that. And she said, she didn't want to hurt them, so she would knock them out and she'd break their necks before she'd eat them. her beliefs were that to cause uh, violence to the psyche, to the emotions of the animal when before you eat it, makes it stick in that form so it can't come back as another thing. So the Oma don't draw any blood. They don't cut anything. They don't cut a carcass. They don't cut an umbilical cord. They let it slough off, for instance. They don't cut anything. The only time the Oma will cut or damage anything in a violent way is for punishment, criminal behavior within a group. And then Guanch, they're much more warrior-like, more hunter-like. They look like gorillas. My father, he was Guanch, and he stands 10 feet at least. Both of them have black hair. And Guanch are more warrior-like. They use more tools. But both of those cultures, if they're not out on their own, they still, eat together. And they, rest together. Couples will, in the afternoons, find a spot that's, warm and sunny and comfortable that they can relax in, and they'll sit and nap together. They'll, talk to each other, sit in spots like that. And some of those spots can be quite specially designed. I found one when I was tracking it was 2010 up in Washington. I was living up there at the time, and I had gone up along a ridgeline where I'd seen plenty of evidence below, but I knew that they were going up on the ridgeline. It was pretty extensive, several miles long. And investigating one day, I get up there and I'm like, it's like 1 in the afternoon. I'm like, dog's tired, I'm tired. And I tried to find a spot to go, sit off the trail and have lunch. And I wanted some seclusion because there were not ATV riders, but dirt bike riders who go up on the ridgeline. So you always had to kind of step off the trail. So I found this pathway, and the pathway turned out to be a spiral into a massive bush system. And I didn't think about it. I should have thought about it because of the time of day. But I, take my dog, and we're heading into this little opening, and I'm going downhill, maybe a 12% grade or 14% grade. And I hear, 2 individuals moving, they exited where I was going into. It's pretty normal, if you, go into a location where they're at, they'll typically just move off to the side or leave. But that's usually only when you're dealing with single individuals. If you're dealing with a family group, they usually just, the whole group pick up and leave, because if there are babies involved, they don't want you around them. So I got oofed out on both sides, and I realized I just made a horrible mistake. And it was one of the times I backed out of a spot. It's one of the few times I've ever backed out of a spot. Because, in my periphery, I could see a female over here and a male over there, and they weren't but like 8-10 feet away from me. And like, okay, well, I'm out. Bye. So I went and had my lunch somewhere else. So they'll warn you. I don't think that the majority of accounts where they become violent, it's been because they're the ones being the aggressor. I think something has been done to them that people aren't talking about. And I can say that with earnesty because the only time I've ever been surrounded by a family group, and it was a group that I had tracked with and been around and had sat with in some cases. There was an individual that would let me sit with her, the old woman. And I never had any kind of bad activity, Every once in a while they'd throw stuff at me, but that was just, hey, get the heck out of here. And that was usually at night. They didn't do it during the day. And that's the other thing. They're a little more aggressive at night because you're disturbing them hunting their game. They want you to leave so they can coax their game back. So keep that in mind when you're out there screaming in the woods thinking you're looking for monkeys. You're disturbing somebody's ability to catch dinner, for Christ's sake. Pardon my French. So, yeah, they don't, that group, somebody had gone in, a group of volunteers thought they were doing an ecological favor, and they were clearing out some structures. because they thought humans made them. Yeah. And after that, that group became very disturbed for several months. They would throw things at you. They would whoop at you. They would chase you. They would, they didn't want you in their woods. And I understand why. The old woman was the last person in their family group that could make structures like that knew how, and that had the ability to. See, they're not all equally created. Some are more artistic like us and can do more things like creating structures. And some, their mentality or their hands are too rudimentary and they don't grasp it. So the little upside down baskets she had made were bird weirs that she'd left for her family so that they would be provided for after her death. Now they'd been up there for 18, 20 years, and everybody left them alone. It'd always been kind of known in the area that's the people, the creepy crawlies up there, sneak up on you. Just leave it alone, leave them be. But we got a new land manager in the area, and they decided that couldn't be, and took it out. So I ended up getting. I went in to take pictures in that area. I wanted pictures of the structures and hadn't realized they were destroyed. This is a group of Oma, and I got stuff thrown at me at the site where I thought the structure should have been. And then I got kind of pushed off that hillside, down and across a gully and up another hillside, because I was probably 3/4 of a mile in, trying to get pictures of this. And then, my vehicle's all the way down the roadside. So I got to the second hilltop, and pretty sure I had about 10 of them around me, but they had driven me straight into a individual who was up in a tree who started ripping branches out of the top of the tree and throwing branches at me. So I stopped. I was maybe 400 feet from my vehicle at that point. I stopped because I realized they had literally been driving me and they had pushed me into a combatant. So I sat down on the nearest big log I could find to see what they would do. They kept throwing things at me. They kept oofing at me and growling a little bit and shaking branches. They'd shake the bottom of the trees and bushes at me, try to scare me. So I coughed. All of a sudden, they didn't do anything. Everything stopped. They stopped throwing stuff. The branches stopped getting ripped out of the top of the tree. They stopped shaking stuff at me. A few minutes go by and they started again. So I coughed again. And they stopped. So that's something you can do at least with Oma and Glotch, probably. And then maybe Aaron and Scukom. So let me see here. They already use sign language. That's why I put up the information on the hand talking. They can understand native hand talking, and they will respond with knocks to you hand talking. And many of them, especially here in the Northwest, seem to have adopted English as a secondary language. So thankfully that has occurred. I know that my adoptive parents, when they realized that it was beneficial to speak English and that people might speak with them, I know they taught their children to speak English. And I know that some of them, one of her suitors that came to the ranch, I got to meet him. He was he was Scukom, dark brown, very nice young man, and he had learned how to speak English because he sat under somebody's window listening to their TV. So to think that they are stupid monkeys, I think that's silly. So let me see here. What else? I love vocal recordings. I know of an area where I could do some here, but I don't have a bullseye mic, and right now I don't have a vehicle to drive down to that area. Yeah, rock stacking. We find rock stacking all up and down the Willamette River. Always have. And some of it's people, but some of it isn't. I mean, some of it's us, people, and some of it's furry people. Oh, thank you, Jason, for the great compliment. I'm sorry it's a little rough. And I am going to try to make these a little longer. Uh, Let me turn this up, see if I'm... thank you. My bad. I forgot to turn my volume up to record. Sorry about that. Typically, they've never hit me. They always throw to miss. Uh, One of the females up in Washington that I was uh, trying to get close to, she had a new baby. And she would she'd throw a little piece of gravel about the size of a pea. Let me know that I was too close to her and the kid. I think the biggest thing I've ever had thrown at me was maybe something the size of a softball, but it missed me. They've never really hit me with anything. The only one that's ever hit me with anything was the weirdest thing I ever had happen to me in my entire life. So I was on one of the back roads, and I was driving. It's a slower speed road, so it's maybe 45 mile an hour in that area. I had my window down on the passenger side, and this area for years I have noticed Bigfoot crossover, and they look like gaunch, they look like gorillas, and they go up into the foothills, so I know it's one of their pass-throughs. And there's a couple of trees in this one particular area of the road where you sometimes will see them at dusk. You'll see one waiting to cross the road, and you'll be standing, in the edge of the tree. And my dog was hanging her head out the window, and I got hit in the side of the head with something. And, what the heck? And I had noticed him. I knew it was there because I'd seen him as I was driving up. It was a little bit after dusk. I saw him kind of profiled next to the tree in my headlights. And I, touched my leg because I felt something. I thought, oh, maybe a little pebble. It was a piece of clay. And it was a dried clay, and it had fingerprints on it, of the individual. I tried to keep that because I thought it was kind of a unique thing to get hit with. Uh, and I think it's finally eroded. Unfortunately, that was a couple of years ago. I'm going to have to look for it to see if it's still around or not. Yeah, I've wondered that too, if they understand the chronic wasting disease. I know that they don't eat rotten food. They don't eat carrion. They only eat live food. And I know that Venjan, the one that was on our ranch, she was very aware of diseases. She understood what diseases were. So I don't think that they would willingly eat, something that was infested with the wasting disease. I think that would be up to somebody a little more, I don't know, out of their minds. I wouldn't do it, Any kind of an animal walking around half dead, you're not going to want to eat that meat. There's something wrong with it. Actually, Mills or Miles, I don't know which way you say your name. Sorry if I mispronounced it. I don't know if they do any baseball playing. And yes, they do live here in Oregon. I'm currently in Oregon, next to the Willamette River here, Justin. So I do know of locations in some of the woods up here where there've been outdoor concerts and things, and the Sabe in those areas have gotten very used to hearing music. And like if you go out around the concert as they're happening, you can find them. They'll be sitting in the hillsides watching what people are doing. They watch you everywhere. Uh, maybe maybe it's just me getting too far away. Maybe I'm putting my hand over the speaker. Let me try holding it differently. Hopefully that's better. So yeah, they don't necessarily play sports, although they do. The children play little hunting games and foraging games and communication games and trading games and stuff like that. But their lifestyle is too based on daily survival. So what they do has to be focused on, either gathering food or taking care of each other. Oh, awesome. And Sabe, most of them, the ones that are like us, that are humanoid, uh, they sleep on the, most of them sleep on the ground. I mean, a few of them will build like stick beds. The Yeren build kind of a platform bed from what my grandmother told me. And the Scukum, they build kind of the same style, little twigs and stuff woven together to give a bit of a spring. They'll be like 8 inches thick or 10 inches thick, or sometimes thicker. But the Scukum will usually put like a little barrier. They'll make a woven like fence to hold everything together in their nest, their bed. So it's much more like a framed-in mattress almost. I'd see that down in the redwoods a lot when I was a child camping with my mother. A lot of Scukum live in the northern redwoods. We got a lot of Oma and Guanche for the north here, and Yeren east of here, and in Central Oregon there are Yeren and Redbone people. Now the ones that aren't so cool to be around because they're way too intelligent and they're a little bit peculiar in their behaviors. So on that note, on my turnout, I ended up offending a group of redbone people by hunting too much in their territory and trying to help horses that were in the area coming in at winter, in the winter in the snow, and I would bring hay into the open range for some of the horses, and there was no roadway, so I'd have to carry it in for the horses that were out there. Thankfully, it was only a small group of 4 horses, so it wasn't much to carry, and I didn't have to go too far. But they started harassing the horses, and they'd keep the horses from getting food, so I'd have to go further and further in. So they were luring me into. I'd spent time during the week. I would go to school because I was in high school at the time, and I'd do my hike at the end of day out feed the horses. Over the weekends or any time I had off from school, I would be out in my little igloo and spending the weekend out there. So my turnout by the end of it, because of the harshness of winter, I was in most of the time. But I ended up one day coming home from school, and my mother said she hadn't seen the horses at all, and the neighbors hadn't seen the horses at all that day. She told me to go out and check on them because, no, I'm sorry, Uncle Long is not alive. He died like 85 or 86, if I remember right. Maybe as late as 87. I wish he were still alive. I'd love to be able to introduce you guys to him. He was such a neat old individual. So anyway, I went out to check on the horses because we'd had a really bad, like sleet, ice storm the night before, and Mom was concerned that they had been, in trouble because of the storm. So I come back, I found the horses, and they had been driven to underneath a tree, and they were all kind of frozen in the, they were frozen in the storm ice against the bottom of the tree. Just their lower halves were frozen in, their legs and their sides, but they were all still alive, and I figured I could break them out. So I ran back home, asked my mom for anything that I could use to break the horses free, and she gave me a couple of ball peen hammers. So I ran back out to try to break the horses free, and I got the first one almost completely freed. I had his front legs freed, and I was working on his side and his back haunch because he was only frozen on one side. He still had one back leg free. Uh, and then the red bone people, four brothers, that had been kind of pestering me off and on because I was goofing around in their hunting territory too much. They started throwing snowballs at me. And then I realized, I got pelted a couple times, and they hadn't attacked me, but they were letting me know, and they were visible. I mean, they were like 30 feet away from me, and they were all off the backside of me. All I had my two ball peen hammers, and I tried to persevere and try to break the horse free still, and no, they got too violent with me. They started hitting me with ice balls. They were packing the stuff really hard. So yeah, I guess I have been hit with stuff, but only when it was, enemy territory kind of thing. So I had to leave the horses behind. And then I realized they weren't going to leave me alone this time. They didn't, usually they'd pester me and drive me out of the area and then they'd leave me alone. But because I tried to help the horses that they had been harassing, they had forced the horses during the storm to lay down under the tree. I realized that after I saw all the snowballs around and rocks and dirt clods. They had been purposely trapping the horses. So I figured they would had decided they were going to eat them. Me trying to get them out aggravated them. So they followed me home that day. I was literally dodging from tree to tree, trying to avoid them. And then after that, a couple months later, we ended up having to completely move out of that area and leave that home behind because they kept harassing us. They kept coming to where we lived and trying to take the building apart that we were in. Let me back up and see if I can answer a few more questions. Yeah, I know where Sweet Home is. If I had a vehicle, yeah, I'd go up and uh, trot around in the woods looking for Bigfoot with you. But I don't currently have one. Maybe there are a few other of us that are kind of interested in cryptids. Maybe we can get some of the locals together that are cryptid people and maybe have a day picnic somewhere. That'd be awesome. Yeah, the last time I saw Uncle Ong was about 18, and I was in college at the time, and he stopped by when I was out having lunch on the green, so to speak. He uh, he came to visit to say goodbye. He was heading home. He knew he was getting close to passing away, and I had seen him on the street, walking. He was playing his Doctor Who gig. So he'd walk along looking like this old trapper dude, with the fedora and the goofy old-fashioned clothes, and he'd have this little white candy bag, paper white candy bag full of pebble candies that were, the kind of touristy candies that you get at the coast. And he had some real rocks also in his little bag. So he'd typically offer people, hey, if they were talking to him, he'd offer them a candy. But he'd chew on the rocks because that's what he actually ate. No, no, no. My dad was 10. No, I, I have cryptid adoptive parents. I have normal human being parents. No, our mink ranch, when I was growing up, had an Oma woman that came onto it that was looking for a mate, and she was able to find her mate while still living on our property. And because of my interactions with her concerning the Gugway that was attacking her and how her to-be husband met her, there's a lot to that story, but in that process, they ended up adopting me, a human child, as their own, so to speak. Which means I kind of can, you know, do a few more things in this area and get away with a little more stuff than other people. Yeah, hoodrat, or hoodat, hoodat. Sorry, I didn't mean to mispronounce that. Good to see you too. I don't have mind speak with him. That's called telepathy. My Guanch father only ever used telepathy with me once, and not all of them can do it. It's just like us. Not everybody is telepathic. You kind of have to practice it to be telepathic. Otherwise, you have to be born with it. So a couple of years ago, I ended up with a tick, and I couldn't get the head out. And my Guanch father had had a dream about me having the tick in my body. So he came to me in person in the middle of the night while I was in my home. He let me know he was there to come outside. So I went out to the fence line where he was, said hello, and he let me know that he'd had the dream about me having a tick and asked if that was true. And I said, yeah, I can't get the head out. And he says, okay, well, I'm gonna cure you. I'm going to heal you. So he hit me with an infrasound uh, of some type, because my skeletal system felt like it was flipping rattling. My chest, my lungs, I felt them rattle. My internal organs rattled. But by 12 hours, by about 12 or 14 hours later, uh, I had several of the tick pupa expel, and no more tick. So it's not common that they do that sort of thing. The things that you like, the woo factor, that's all meditation. That's all them practicing skills. It's not per se the way they are, or not. I mean, we're born the same way, but you have to practice those skills. Those aren't just something that you got. Yeah, Uncle Long, he passed away from old age. Um, he said that his species lives an exceedingly long period of time, and that at the end of their life cycle, they become aware of when they're going to end, because they only defecate once in their life and then they die. I mean, there, I'm going to have to go into more explanation on that, because he could also eat food and had normal, regular movements, but their species, because they eat stone, they only ever have one real of their species defecations, and it's a lead. He said it looks like a little rabbit or deer pellet, but it's made of lead, basically. And then, usually within 30 to 36 hours of them doing that, they die. But they can feel that process coming on for several years before it happens. Oh yeah, I just purchased a second phone. I want to set it up as my Northwest Native Tracker phone. And I'm going to be setting up an email for Northwest Native Tracker. Hopefully here in the next week or two, I'll have both of those things up and going, so I will let you know once that happens. Well, that's good. You don't have to look for them. That's awesome. They're very consistent where they stay. Like the ones here, this probably the same family group, not the same individuals, of course, because of the timeline difference, but the group of Scukom that live here in this region of the river near the fennel fields where my dad used to collect fennel, they've been near, this family group's been here since my father's time, being here on the river trapping in the 30s. So I don't think they really go too far. I mean, they move in around in their own hunting areas, and they do trade stuff. They'll go up and down a river, or they'll go on a trail between, like, yeah, this part of the state and the middle of the state and the coastline. But they don't typically leave an area. They, like us, kind of habitually stay in an area. Well, the ones that whistle, that do that funny little at you with their, I can't whistle because you know. So anyway, those are usually red bone people, and their hair is a little bit longer than Oma or Guanche. Oma and Guanche hair is about 2 inches, 3 inches in length at the very most. But the red bone people, their hair is usually 4 or 5 inches in length, longer. And dog people's hair is right around 3 inches in length. So you might have run across a type of red bone person. They can be pretty aggressive at times. And there are quite a few more of them that I don't know about. I know they exist. I just don't know exactly what they look like because I've either never had them described well or I've never seen them. I've only ever seen two types of red bone people here in this state anyway. Let me see if I can get a few more questions answered here. And a lot of the cryptids actually have, the humanoid more like cryptids, all have red shine, just like we have actually the red pupil syndrome when we're taking pictures. It's because of the high iron and phosphorus in our bodies. And I think it might also be relevant for them in their diet that those elements give them that red shine. Yeah, I can believe that there's a good sized family group up there around Sweet Home. I've heard a lot of, just driving through, I hear sounds every once in a while when I used to drive through that area. Well, I know that Uncle Ong wanted to be buried with his family, and he said that they buried their own on their own property, and that they said their own words over the bodies. So I'm assuming it's their whatever little religious way they have. He was very Buddhistic. I would assume there's something similar with his family. Oh, I'm actually next to the Willamette River here in just outside of Eugene. Well, near Eugene. So yeah, I'm on the riverway here in the Willamette Valley. In fact, the river's just the other side of. Well, here, let me show you where the river is. Let me turn this around. We'll walk you over to the river. And this is one of their little woven side paths. I love this stuff, the way they put these pieces of wood together, make a little railway. So, there's Dad's old little lake that he used to like to stop at. His swimming hole is just on the other side of those trees. And here's the Willamette River. And then where that new branch is where I found the banana the other day. In fact, I think the peel is still over here. Yep. But that stick's new. That wasn't here yesterday, and it looked like it got dragged over here. Yeah, it got dragged. Interesting. Huh. So, yeah. Hopefully that answers your question. I just love this area. It's so beautiful. Another, there's another old structure here that's pretty well dilapidated at this point. So yeah, I love being out in the wilds, and it's nice to be able to share a little bit of information with people. So let me get back down to where my bag is. And yeah, there are a few fishermen that come out this way, but it's not very often. Most of those tracks up and down that hill's me anyway. Yeah, and you're not going to find too much in the way of track evidence a lot of the time because ground is really hard packed in this valley. There's a lot of clay. The only time you'll get any kind of print is just, when you've gotten lucky and found a soft spot where they're passing through, or you've gone down into a creek bed or something intentionally trying to find that sort of thing. So let me do a little catch up on the reading here. See if I got any more questions. Oh, the Noongar people. Yeah, I'm very curious about the different kinds of cryptids you have in Australia. Because I've heard that a lot of them look very similar and act very similar to the ones here. I have seen two different kinds of the people at play look very violent. Justin, what do they look like, the cryptids in your area? Just for curiosity's sake, I'm very curious what they look like. Let me turn this back around. Oh, I don't know. Maybe you like the scenery better than my ugly face. I'm teasing. I do love these woods, though. And it does not appear that they are in this immediate area today. There's a little bit of interaction I have heard. It's been on the other side of the river and way off behind the other side of the bed system behind me. So let me turn this back around. Yeah, some groups are very proficient at telepathy because they teach each other. So I am almost to the end of my hour. Saturday, probably going to try for another 1 hour show. I think I'm going to make that the norm. And it'll probably be similar to this and just, answering questions if anybody's got questions that I can answer. Or maybe I'll do a little bit of, particular topic. But I kind of like to keep it more informal simply because I'm not here to produce a show. I'm here to share what I understand. And to me, it's easier to talk to a friend, uh, just being jargonish, than it is to be all overproduced. Yeah, I'm not about overproduced. I'm more about let's provide some information so we can begin to understand these things and come together on this topic, you know. And there have been some bizarre stories. I mean, my military friend that had the run-in with what we think might have been a tengu, he point blank, he emptied an entire mag into what he thought was going to be a dead critter. Didn't even mushroom a bullet. He kept he kept a handful of bullets. It was out a little Browning. Um, had rifling. You could tell it had been shot. He even sent him to the lab, confirmed they'd been shot. No mushrooming. Nothing was an indicator that they ever hit anything. So either something magically blocked those bullets from going somewhere, or somehow that individual had the ability to not be hit, or had a energy about them or something. So I have noticed that some of them do seem to like to dare the bullet. For instance, the dog man that I lived near for 7 months. He used to harass one of the back neighbors. He'd go, he'd go bother that poor guy in the middle of the night so bad, he'd take pot shots at the dog man to chase him away. I didn't really realize that was the case for the first few months I was there until one night I heard the guy screaming, "Whatever the you are, you dog looking thing, leave me alone, get off my back porch." And that's when I realized the dog man that was coming through our property down there was, messing with the neighbor on the backside, a couple of acres away. And he was intentionally doing it to get shot at. So I think they are practicing a skill, uh, and I think it is a practiced skill. I don't think they have any technology or devices. Gen never had any technology or devices, and neither did my Guanch father. So, and I've never seen them with anything like that. That wouldn't make any sense. They act like primordial humans more than anything else. Oh yes, and there was a question about how big some of these get. And yes, I will go into a little bit about the plants that they use. Very interesting, Justin. Yeah, you sound like you got maybe some Janowska if they're that I would love to. That'd be interesting. I've only ever been around Janowska once. That was where my mom took me. So medicinal plants. They use tree saps. They'll use pine saps for wounds. They'll use kind of like a cough syrup, so to speak. They'll use alder sap for coughs. They'll chew it like a chewing gum, though. They don't make it into anything. They just chew it like a chewing gum, and that soothes your throat. They've also some down south of here. They actually quarry lime, and they make a mixture of mud lime and hematite for treating, of all things, poison oak. So there's some evidence that they also use mineral medicines, not just plants. They do a lot of, like, they'll use it in the raw form. Like the old woman, she had a heart condition, and she would occasionally, I'd find her with a piece of foxglove root, and she'd chew on it a little bit, she'd lay it down, calm her heart. Same thing my native grandmother would do. She said the digitalis pills didn't always work. It was better to have a piece of foxglove root just in case the pills failed. So they use those kind of Native American cures. So that's a direction for you to work on, maybe looking into that aspect of them. So my hour is up, and I can only have 25 people on at a time until I get over 1,000 subscribers. That's fine by me. Um, if you are interested in a particular topic, though, feel free to suggest stuff to me in the comments throughout the week. If you really want more information about one of the topics I put up, or whatnot, or you have something you'd like me to try to. So if you want some focus, more focus in the show that's other than just me talking about what I know or what I've experienced, then, let me know and I'll do what I can. Yes, some of the cryptid people can live hundreds of years. Some of them have lifespans like us. Some of them have lifespans into thousands of years like Uncle On. So yeah, they have a much greater distance in what their lifespans can be like. Some of the moth people, the chrysalis people, in some of their phases, they will live for several thousand years that way before they go through another moth stage and shed form and become another thing. Sometimes their lives are in those forms only a few days long, though, too. So, who knows? You'd have to be able to confirm the mythology in some way in those respects. But it's interesting to think about because some of the natives thought these sorts of things in the past. So, I am going to head out because I have to walk to work still. And I will have a Saturday show at 3 p.m. And again, it will be for an hour. Oh, thank you, Justin. I appreciate that. I'm kind of happy to have just, a small group to begin with because I'd rather people are able to digest this material and investigate it for themselves and come to their own conclusions. And then, yeah, I would love to have people understand enough to be able to get people interested in actually looking at the kana and kanji because though I'm not a fluent speaker of the language, I have all of the information, the sounds and the shapes for the sounds. It's just my grandmother died before I was ever taught the entire language. I was only taught parts of the language, so I don't know much of it. I know how to write a little bit. I know how to sound them out, but I don't know what the phrase is or the word is, or sometimes I don't always get the sound out right. So, that's why I've been kind of on this exploration myself, thinking back to the information that my grandmother gave me and the kana that Uncle Ong wrote down for me, and then just trying to understand the languages and types of things that I'm seeing, and that they are translatable. Accidentally, a couple of years ago, I discovered that I could translate using Google Lens. I can't do it straight off the ground, because the camera gets all confused with the amount of sticks. But if you take the image of the kana and you reproduce it with, brush strokes, like you're writing kanji, and you repeat the pattern, and then you use your old style Google Lens program to identify the pattern. A good portion of the time, about 70% of the time, I can get the kana and kanji to translate. So that's something to consider when you're looking in your areas and you find kana and kanji. There is the option potentially, and sometimes you'll have to try different. You might think you have the the image the correct direction, but you may not. The kana might actually be from a different angle. So you might have to try to translate in all four directions before you figure out which direction it translates in. But then you also have this complication. There's enough Malaysian uh, in the forms of their language. It seems that some of their kanas can be translated in all four directions and have different meanings. A lot of their poem-oriented kanji are like that, or their prayer-style kanji. You can literally flip the kanji in different directions and translate it in different directions. So that's something to consider. That's another complexity that is very much like human language, and most kanji can be read in four directions too. People may not realize that. Hey, Lauren. Hello. Well, you just joined. I'm so sorry. Maybe I should just walk out with you and head to the main trail that way, if you don't mind. Not like you have a choice. I mean, you can boonie if you want. So yeah, I think I'm just going to pack up and head out. So yeah, Saturday, and I think I'm gonna probably do that one closer, either closer to home, or I might choose a location that's again by the river somewhere. Probably, probably won't be this one, but then I might. There's been a lot of activity in this area. It might be worth it to come back down here a couple more times. The other is, I just gotta keep going to different locations so I can find different stuff to show you. And I pretty much walked 3, 4 miles of this trail this past weekend, and this was about the only good, a couple hundred feet down south, and in this area, about the only good crossover I found along this trail this time of year. And the other blind that's active is 2 miles behind me to the east over here around the other pond system. So not not real good pickings on this end of town anymore, so to speak. Black rocks and white rocks. Black usually signifies a negative connotation, like poison food, or the answer is no. White usually represents this is edible, or the answer is yes, this is a good thing. And black and white rocks are sometimes used quite a bit by some cryptids. I know Oma use a lot of signifiers, black and white rocks. When our garden started coming on, I went out as things were starting to ripen, and over the space of one night, she had placed rocks, either a little black rock or a little white rock, at the end of each row of our vegetables to let me know which ones she liked and which ones she didn't like when they had come onto fruit. So I collected the ones that were on the white rock rows because those were the things that she liked. So that's something that might help you with that. Well then, if it's a single black rock in the center, maybe somebody did something wrong. And if it's, black ring, white rock, it could be captivity, or it could be kind of a ceremony thing too. You also have to understand these people do practice religion. So it might be something spiritual that you've run across, don't realize it. I'd have to see pictures maybe if you got those. I mean, if you guys want to share pictures, all you have to do is post them to your channels, and then you can share them to my channel. So maybe we can start some communication about things that way. I've had people in the past post pictures, and I've been able to identify what some of the things are in some of the pictures. Like Badgerman, it was so cool to see those. I mean, I've only ever seen Badgerman here. I never even knew there were more back east. So anyway, I gotta get. You have a great day, and I will see you guys again on Saturday. And till then, be safe, And thank you for everything. Take care, guys. Oh my, that's how you do a poll? I am going to have to, I tried to look into, like, if you guys got any good, if you guys got any good, sorry. My bad. Still trying to exit. Yeah, I'm still not finding any good information on how to use this stuff.